leadership and followership is a two-way thing. It's a dynamic that's happening between the person who's leading and the person who's being led. Over the years, I've worked with lots of teams, and it might be started out as a team development program, but what comes out of it is members of the team are struggling working with that leader. And if they're up for it or they've requested it, they'll say, look, I need some help working with my leader. They frustrate me. I don't understand what they're wanting. They seem to change their mind, whatever the issue is. And there's often an expectation by the follower, the leader's got to change themselves and I can just keep doing what I'm doing. Now, when I've explored that with the followers, I would say, so if you don't make any change, but the leader's doing all the work, what do you think that means? How do you think your leader's going to see you? And they'll say, well, they're the leader. I say, sure, they're the ones that probably have the most influence to be able to change. But if you don't change anything, what's your leader going to think of you? And what we know is people's careers move forwards, sideways, or backwards, very much based on the perception their leader has of them. So I guess the starting point is, if your leader doesn't think positively of you, what do you think might happen to your career in that team, in that organization? Now, everyone's got choice. They can go somewhere else, usually. But if someone's wanting to stay there, I'd say, okay, if you really want to work here and be successful with this leader, you've got to understand your leader psychologically. You've got to observe them, study them, see how they like information presented to them, what are their preferences there. When they're making decisions, what are you noticing they pay attention to? When you want to interact or meet with them, how do they prefer that? Do they want to do it spontaneously, or do they want to have a meeting booked? And if you are willing to move in the direction of working with your leader's psychological needs, and they're doing the same for you, you actually have a very harmonious and cohesive way of leader and follower working with each other. And the other thing I think is that if a person's not getting along with their leader, sometimes it's because they're just very different personality styles to their leader. And whilst that can be assumed to be just a foregone failure, that they'll never understand each other, in actual fact, if you've got leader and follower who are very different from each other on a personality front, they have an opportunity to tap into each other's strengths, which means they cover each other's blind spots. So a leader who has a team member who's very different to them, they can tap into that follower and say, okay, am I missing anything here? Or a follower who's different to the leader and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking, but what are you seeing that I might have missed? That's where I think followers have a responsibility to meet their leader halfway. If you expect the leader to do all the flexing, whilst that might be nice for the follower, it may not mean that the leader really has connected with the follower. And again, the if you like, power dynamic in that relationship is the leader has more influences to what will happen with the follower's career. That can be tough news to hear for some followers, but the way the world of work often works, it still plays out.